Hello and welcome to Nikon Report, your weekly roundup of all the latest Nikon news and all other photographic announcements that we found interesting. It's Konstantin here, and here is
Becky.
All right, it's number 65. Let's get straight to it. So we've got update on 800mm.
We do.
We skipped it last week, but now the lens is finally shipping. So we've got confirmation from Singapore, Canada, USA, and Germany. And I believe you have update for UK buyers as well.
Yes, we do have a small shipment arriving within the next 10 to 14 days. I believe we are also seeing a glimmer of 400mm f2.8 on the horizon, but it is the batch is so tiny.
Just the tip.
It's like
just the lens hat.
Just the
lens hood.
Just the lens hood. So I don't want to get too excited about that yet, because I know we have a lot of people waiting for both of those lenses. But there will be a very tiny shipment arriving probably within the next 10 to 14 days in the UK.
I see, but it was quite a hot weekend in London, so it could be a mirage.
Yes.
All right. Well, speaking of 800mm, they finally published a manual, which is available in PDF form online. So if you're into manuals reading, especially for the ones for the lenses, it is available in PDF form online, so you can definitely check it out in the link below. Another interesting thing they published is Z9 button function custom control list.
Yes. So this document provides a list of all the functions that can be assigned to each control. There are lots of them, I will say. Hundreds of options, in fact.
3 pages worth.
So if you are one of those lucky few that has a Z9 in your hands, or even someone who has one on order and is hoping to get hold of it sometime between now and next year, then do have a look at that, because it might be handy to know how you can customize your camera before you start to use it.
Absolutely. And if you lived under the rock for the last 2 weeks, Nikon published a 2.0 firmware for Z9. So if the link is finally available there. We're not going to discuss the list of changes because we've done it in the last couple of weeks. But the link is there. Have a look at that. What I do want to look at is actually the official list of changes for Z6 II and Z7 II firmwares, because we had a press release. Now we actually have the official list.
Yes. So they have added for the Z6 II and Z7 II support for the 800mm f6.3, so that's our new lens. Support for the MLL7 remote control. I know that a few people who picked that up in the press release immediately hopped onto our website and cleaned out our stock, so thanks for that.
More on the way.
That's very true. They've also added save focus position and recall focus position
To custom settings menu.
That's what they've done.
Makes sense. And they added focus ring rotation to custom setting menu, switch focus control ring rolls as well. And as of April 2022, these features are only available in 7200 so far. So I assume that this will be added to the future lens like 400 and 800mm in the future. And I assume 100 to 400?
One would hope, yeah.
Yeah. So fingers crossed, I'm sure we will see a tiny update in that space as well.
So now they've also made the following improvements. The camera focuses more readily on the subject in the center of the frame if it fails to detect the face or eyes of a portrait subject when auto area AF is selected.
Okay, so I assume more readily means faster?
Yeah, that's what we're hoping to test out in person, actually, and we will have a look at that. But the initial press release didn't kind of mention what they were going to do to the focusing, so I'm hoping that more readily does mean quicker.
Okay, well, so far it's interesting that there's not much actually content created around Z6 II and Z7 II firmware, so hopefully we'll film some this week. What else did they improve in autofocus there?
They've added memory recall. It's been altered so that regardless of the focus mode selected, the focus position chosen via autofocus doesn't change if the shutter release button is pressed halfway, while memory recall is in effect, which is a small tweak, but could be useful for some. They have also done some bug fixes. So apparently the camera would sometimes fail to focus on the subject. I mean, that's that's quite a big deal.
Yeah, if it fails, well, we fixed it.
It's like, great.
Yeah.
That was if pictures were taken immediately after a new battery was inserted.
Ah, okay, very specific.
Very
okay,
specific, but
okay.
I just thought it was quite funny. Reactivating the standby timer in user settings U1, U2, U3 would cause the shutter speed to change if the stored value was slower than 30 seconds.
Okay, again, very specific.
Very niche issue. Pictures viewed by rotating the main command dial after zooming in on an image in portrait orientation would not display correctly. Apparently there was a jitter issue that would occur in movies recorded while footage was being output to an HDMI device with very specific frame rates. So that's been fixed.
Okay, so it's mostly 4K and high frame rate at 60 and 50 frames per second. Okay.
And then the movie record button would not function with certain gimbals while video was being recorded to an external device. I think we have seen this issue ourselves where the movie record button on a gimbal will not start recording.
Yes, that's true. And we thought it could be a USB cable issue, could be something else, but it seems it could be a firmware issue as well.
Yeah, so those are the things that they've sorted. We have included a link to the firmware update in the description box in the podcast notes. So if you need that, then head over there.
All right, and last week we also have a huge list of Nikon software updates. So let's start with the major one, which is 1.2 version of NX Field software with added support for Z9 camera.
So the support for the Z9 with version 1.2.0 enables detection of the world's largest range of 9 subject types. So we've got people, dogs, cats, birds, bicycles, motorcycles, cars, trains, and planes for more reliable acquisition of the intended subject, even with remote operation. In addition, support for the Z9's high-speed frame capture +2 feature that realizes the world's fastest frame rate of 120 frames per second enables the remote capture of decisive moments that cannot even be seen with the naked eye.
Which is important for sports and news photography, reportage, and all this. So, and then they're talking about dual stream technology built in Z9, which enables live view display on a smartphone or tablet while using the NX Field software with very little delay or no freezing, which is really good. So, this software, I assume you need to get from Nikon. So, it's not available for download straight away. So I guess you need to get in touch with Nikon to do that. So the bits of software that you can actually download and install yourselves are Picture Control Utility 2, Webcam Utility, NX Tether, Camera Control Pro 2, and NX Studio. Now, a part of NX Studio, which has a huge list of things that they've changed, the other 4 that we mentioned mainly added the support of Windows 11 and Z9 cameras. They've added the support of Mac operating system Mojave version 10.14 and
added the support for Monterey.
That's right. So those are kind of the main things. And then NX Studio has a bunch of other things like white balance adjustments, etc., as well as recognition of lenses like 800mm and etc. So that's that. And I think let's move on from the software and go to the new patents filed by Nikon in Japan.
Ooh, so looks like we have an improved version of the 24-70 f4S lens. Now, don't entirely know why this would be the case, but we've retrieved this from Asobinet.
Yes.
So it is translated, so bear with us, but it says it seems that the purpose of this was to improve the optical performance while being aware of movie shooting. In fact, Nikon has achieved quiet and smooth AF while suppressing focus breathing. In fact, it has a collapsible structure and is also good that it is even smaller when stored. So if we kind of sort of then paraphrase that, it sounds like the new patent sounds like a 24-70 f4 could be smaller, more compact, and somehow better for movie shooting.
Yeah, well, I'm looking at the previous patent, and it's been filed in 9/11/2017, and then the new patent has been filed on February 18th this year. So that's interesting. And then the more interesting bits, we have 200-400 f5.7 to variable 7.7 apertures.
Interesting aperture.
Yeah, so that one has been filed on 14th of April. And it sounds to me, obviously, with all those patents, it's not exactly what we will get. It may not be the same what is filed. So I assume it could be a 200-600 with more reasonable apertures like 5.6 to 6.3. It could be something else.
Potentially.
Or it could be something that never actually going to become a physical product.
That's always the way with the patent filing, isn't it? Because
absolutely.
They file for these patents and then they may design the product in actuality and go, this doesn't work, or we need to tweak it, or whatever. So it's just a kind of vague idea of what they're working on, really, more than anything. And it may or may not come to fruition. The other one that we have, which I think we're all waiting for, is a 70-300, 4.5 to 5.6.
Finally, we have the first indication of a 70-300 being thought of by Nikon, because it's not on their Z lineup, and we desperately need a consumer long lens.
That's right. And those people at Asobinet have figured out that it is a compatible 35mm full frame lens, but the optical system is different from the existing 70-300. So he's hoping it's a Z lens.
Yeah, again, it's been filed on 14th of April, and it's interesting that the original design was filed in 2016 November. So I assume it could be for the E version of the lens for f-mount, and now we finally have a Z version. The last one, which I don't think is real, is a patent for 28mm f2. This one I don't think is going to be true because the design looks similar to 28mm f2.8 pancake lens that we have. However, what we may get at some point is 28 1.8, which we don't have in the lineup yet. We have 24 and we have 35 and nothing in the middle. So that could be it, but you never know. Again, as we say, with all the patents, we may not see anything come into fruition, but we may get something at the end as well.
Well, we also have on the roadmap that weird, what is it, a 26 or 24 or 22 millimeter.
That's right.
There's a weird prime lens on there that we don't totally understand. You know, could be that as well.
Could be that as well. You never know. So it's a patent. So here we go. All right, let's go to some random news. Nikon Museum in Japan released an original strap which commemorates the film era of Nikon cameras.
Wow.
They limited to 900 pieces, and it's available in Nikon Japan Museum store at 3,300 yen plus tax.
It's yellow and black, so it's the classic Nikon coloring, and it does have Nikon Museum imprinted on it. What's 3,300 yen in Great British pounds?
That's a good question, Becky. I'm glad you asked. Here we go. Yen to GBP. Powered by Google is £20 and 30 pence.
Wow.
Plus VAT.
Bargain.
And shipping. And import duties.
Yes, of course.
So buckle up and pre-order. Now, they also have watches that commemorate cameras like Nikon F, Nikon F3, and Nikon F5, and we talked about them in the past. Now, website DC Watch, which has a watch in its name, but actually it's a website about electronics and gadgets, published a little story about these watches and how they came to be.
Right.
So I've read it. It doesn't say anything about the movement or who made them. So we have obviously Seiko in Japan, so who is quite well-known manufacturer, and obviously we have Grand Seiko, which is a premium brand. So in designs, the premium watch is similar in price to Rolex, Omegas, and Tudors of the world. Right. So no information about this. Then my hope is it's a Seiko 5 and it becomes a Grail. So I'll see you there with this watch. Okay, ciao.
Oh, thanks for that. I have to say, I really like the Nikon F watch. I love the fact that it's got the shutter speed dial in it, although I would be so confused looking at that when I want to get the time quickly.
If someone asks you, what time is it? And you're like, it's 1/25th of a second.
Exactly. Oh my goodness. But I do. They are beautiful, beautiful things. I'd be interested to know. I've seen a few Nikon watches. They have passed through our hands over the years. Not many, to be honest, but they do make these beautiful sort of pieces of memorabilia, and I wonder if anyone would wear them or just have them on display.
That's true. But let's say if you skip your Apple Watch, which is square, like would you prefer a round watch or square watch? What kind of person are you, Becky?
I've always had round watches until my Apple Watch, and you know, my Apple Watch is ancient by comparison. It's a Series 2, and I don't know, we're on Series 7 or something now.
That's true.
But I always used to like round watch. In fact, the dial, you can see the face of my Apple Watch is a clock.
That's true.
It's just a normal clock.
It's almost like an illusion. So you have a square watch with a round face on it. Right. I mean, I'm a round face watch myself, but I do appreciate the Cartier Tank, you know, so or Santos. Those are quite nice watches.
You know far more about watches than I do.
So welcome to Grace of Westminster Watch Podcast.
You know what? We should stock watches.
Yeah, we should branch out.
Why don't we just stock watches?
But the funny thing is that Leica, they just released their own watches.
Really?
Yeah, cost a fortune. You know, super expensive and limited stock, etc., etc. I mean, they're well made, but I guess if I would have to spend so much money, I probably wouldn't buy Leica watch. Probably stick to one of the well-known watch manufacturers like Seiko and Seiko 5 model.
There you go.
Absolutely. Okay. The next one up is also an interesting one. So Adorama is selling a second-hand 300mm f2 lens.
Unusual.
For $20,999. Now, I've looked at this lens. I've never seen it before, so I kind of went on the internet and I just read a few things about it. Apparently, it weighs 7 kilograms. It's not light, okay? So it came with its own teleconverter, which is called TC14C, and you can only use it with this lens, no other lenses. So, and it generally would come in the box, so you wouldn't be able to purchase it separately as well.
Yeah.
So, and apparently, according to serial numbers, only about 100 were made, and then there were a white version of the lens that was released just in Japan, and it was also sold, a part of photographers, to movie companies as well.
Yes, we were actually offered one not that long ago, but we just didn't
We
necessarily.
pass it. No, didn't have
passed it
20
by.
grand on you at the time.
Well, it's one of those things where, first of all, storage space has to be taken into consideration. It's a 7 kilo lens. It's not a small lens at all. But also it made more sense for it to go somewhere like to an auction house or something like that. So it's interesting. Maybe that same person went to Adorama and sold it there.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. And I'm also thinking, we've just did a video about 6mm fisheye on Z9. Now, I know a person who works for Adorama YouTube channel. His name is Seth Miranda.
Yeah.
Maybe he can do a video.
Maybe he can do exactly, an equivalent.
Z9, 300mm, shooting landscapes. I don't know. Or portraiture.
something that a 300mm would be used for.
Absolutely. Well, one of the requests that people asked us to do more, like if say we asked you, the viewers, what other lens you want us to try in different environments and, curious situations and all that. So you've recommended 2000 mil. So we don't have 2000 mil lens in stock, but if one of you have one and want to lend us, I'll carry it myself without strap, of course.
Or the 1200 to 1700.
Exactly. Not insured. We can do that.
We can, absolutely. Moving on to third-party news, TT Artisan R2 announce a new 50mm f/0.95 APS-C lens for the Nikon Z mount.
Okay, so that's an APS-C lens. So I assume it's not going to be as expensive as it would be for full-frame version because it's clearly a really wide aperture. Now, you tell me, you've been testing a tiny little lens, I think a 35mm APS-C, 1.4?
1.4, yeah.
What's your impression so far? I mean, it's a very tiny and expensive lens. I think it's like under $100 or something.
It is about, I think it's about $95, something like that.
Okay, so what's your impression so far?
Considering what it is and for the price that it is and how little it is, it doesn't add any weight to the camera I was using on the Z50 and the ZSC. It's a very quirky lens, but it's good enough for most things. So I was comparing it sort of to my experience of having used DX cameras with the 35 1.8G DX. And I wouldn't necessarily say that one was miles better. It's a little bit better. Obviously, it's a Nikon lens. One thing against the TT Artisan lens, I would say, is that obviously it's manual focus. So not an easy one to get right, particularly if you're shooting right at 1.4. Depends on what you're looking for. It's a very creative lens.
That's
I will
right.
say that.
I would say the build quality didn't feel as nice as Voigtland lens as well.
No, but different.
Exactly.
Different.
So under $100, it's very reasonable. But yeah, obviously Voigtland is going to be better because it costs £500.
Yeah, and it's beautifully made and something else. But I will put out a review video on the TT Artisan lens. They very kindly sent it to us to review. So I will put out a review before too long once I've finalize my thoughts.
Absolutely. And then, obviously it's nice to have different entry points for different budgets. I think that system is opening up nicely to everyone. Now, the next one up is DaVinci Resolve's Beta 1 version 18 has been released. And it has lots of features like cloud collaboration. There's some retouching on-the-go functions where you can correct the skin on the video, etc., etc. So there's a lot of new features included, which we included the link in the article in Petapixel for you to read about. So if you want to testing beta types of software and you want to see the future, what's coming for DaVinci Resolve, I would recommend to look into that. I personally thinking of switching maybe to DaVinci at some point. Just need to find the right time for that.
Yeah, it says apparently there's no cost to operate the DaVinci cloud service.
Here we go,
interesting.
which is a good thing. And obviously you have a DaVinci Resolve, a free version, and then you have a studio version, which you can buy a license for. Or they even give you a free license if you buy a bit of their hardware as well.
Now for our review section. So the Nikon Z 1424 f2.8s lens review has been done by Petapixel. They've called it a superior successor. They say the Z 1424 2.8s lens is seriously one of the best lenses in the Nikon mirrorless lineup and delivers top-tier ultra-wide angle image quality in a lightweight body with a plethora of customizations and added functionality expansions built right into it. They like it.
They do like it. I mean, I want to ask you in terms of, you got obviously 1424 and as Petapixel say, and DP Review and all other reviews saying then, if you really need that type of quality, yes, 1424 is for you, but there's also 1430, which is a lot of people would go over because it's so close to performance of the bigger lens, but in much smaller and lighter package as well as cheaper as well. For you personally, do you do wide angle photography a lot?
I used to do more than I do now, but for me personally, the 14 to 30, I prefer because of its size.
Mm-hmm.
The 14-24 is beautiful. We have used it, actually. We've done some shoots with it and with the 14-30.
Yeah, the famous video that we've never released.
Yeah, there's a reason for that.
If you've seen M. Mayfield live in the farm video, you know why we are not releasing the 14-24 video.
We will redo our review.
It's not the lens, it's us.
Yes,
Mainly.
it's definitely us. We will release our review officially, I think, but I would say that my general conclusion has been the 14-30 for me is more than adequate. I don't shoot wide angles at 2.8. I don't need a 2.8 wide angle lens. I had the 21.8 for a long time and I loved that lens, but now if I was shooting wide angles, I'd be satisfied with the 14-30.
And here we are.
With a difference of opinion.
With a difference of opinion. I personally would go for 14-24, 2.8 myself.
I know.
And I'll tell you why. Because I've just recently got 24-70 2.8. And it's the same situation where you got 24-70 f4, which is a really good lens. And obviously we now got so many 24 zooms out, etc. But in this case, 14-30 is a nice lens. And probably if I would use for travel photography, that's the lens I would go for. But I do get thrown in occasional Airbnb shoot. Remember where the Airbnb type interior shoots were common? You know, remember those days 3 years ago? I think they're coming back apparently.
Yes.
It's like vintage, you know. It's the fashion is cycling through, and we're going to come back to those shoots again. So I do want to get the sharpest lens possible for commercial type of work. Now I understand, you know, the weight and size difference between the two. For this setup, 2.8 glass for me.
Yes, I understand. For your purposes, it makes total sense. And if I was back to doing weddings and concerts and stuff, I'd probably go for the 2.8 as well. But as I have hung up my hat for the time being on that, I'm quite happy with the 14-30.
That's true. And being on the 14-30 side of things is actually, it's superior than 16-35 of 4G lens. And that one was no slouch because a lot of people compared it to 17-35 2.8 back in the day.
That's right.
So the 14-30 is even better. And having a small light package, you can also get probably cheaper filters as well if you're doing the landscape photography as well, because they're just smaller sizes. And obviously it's more pocketable if you go travel and you take a lot of things with you.
Exactly. Now, DP Review TV also published their review of the Z9. So we haven't finished with the Z9 reviews yet, apparently. They call it the best photo/hybrid camera on the market, with only competition coming from the Sony A1. They also say the Z9 has a soul and the A1 does not.
And here we go. This is for you, internet.
Yeah, it has a soul. I love that, though.
Yeah. Leave your comment below.
We're ready for you.
Exactly.
And it was their words, not ours. So
exactly. So, and it's been taken out of the context. But that's fine, because that's what people do for sensationalism.
That's right.
Let's move on to Weekend Read and Watch section. The first one up is the 6mm video that we did and published last week.
That's right. So it's entitled Nikon 6mm f2.8 fisheye on a Z9 first time ever? ? This is a very special lens. It kind of pays homage to the 6mm video that we did. Well, not us actually, but another colleague of ours who used to do our videos many, many eons ago. Before
our takeover of Gray's YouTube channel.
That's right. It was about 10 years ago. And I was looking at this video and thinking, my goodness, why do we not recreate that with the Z9?
Exactly. It's just, why won't we put the quality bar much higher on the production values of that video and just do our spin on it?
Yeah. I don't know if those two things, production value is much higher and our spin on it.
Well, they are always famous for our production values, I would say.
Those two things don't go together at all. They are almost an oxymoron.
But what are your thoughts on this? Would you buy one for yourself? Would you buy two? Would you get a second one as a backup? Is it, nice and small compact lens so it will fit your bag? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. It's very pocketable. No, the 6mm fisheye is obviously a very special lens. It was designed for a very specific purpose. I would say that you can achieve the same thing essentially with an 8-15. Which is obviously the modern f-mount equivalent. And I like the 8-15mm very, very much. I think that it's far more affordable as well. It's not $100,000.
Yeah, and optically superior nowadays as well, because the thing is, this lens was designed as a product of its time, of course. It is very rare. So people who would look into purchasing this lens are primarily collectors. I don't think it would be used for any type of work nowadays. Of course you can shoot Tate Modern and St. Paul's with it, as we did.
Yeah.
But overall, yes, by going with a, let's say something like 8-15 fisheye lens, you A, will spend less, and B, will get a better lens overall.
Next up, we have Nikon Autofocus Explained with Mark Cruz, Senior Manager at the Product DCIL at Nikon USA. DCIL is digital camera interchangeable lens. So he is the senior manager of this product department, and he explains autofocus.
Absolutely. Get ready for 1.5 hour video describing all aspects of Nikon autofocus.
If you have questions on your autofocus, then watch this video.
That's true. And then speaking of Z6 II and Z7 II, that had firmware and apparently had a bit of a backlash on the internet because people thought, well, I upgraded firmware and it's not a Z9. My Z6 II or Z7 II is not a Z9. Matt Irvin has an opinion piece where he talks about Z9 firmware and obviously Z6 II and Z7 II firmwares. And he just explains that, look, you can't expect your cameras behave like Z9. There's a clear advantage in technology of Z9, and older generation cameras can't reach that. But he also goes through the process of how the Nikon went into mirrorless cameras and how Nikon was catching up with Sony at the time. And remember, there's a time where people say, oh, Nikon is dying, or Nikon will never do this, or Nikon, you should do this. I mean, it still partially continues, but with Z9 out, I think it's a clear winner. And as many publications say, that really the only clear competitor to Z9 is A1. So if you look at this in that perspective, you should listen to Matt, see what he says, and tell us what you think in the comments below.
And lastly, we have This Film Expired 60 Years Ago. Can I Still Use It? By Matthew Stren. Thank you very much to Brian Leeming for sending this to me. I did thoroughly enjoy the video, and I thought that you would enjoy it too. Matthew essentially takes some film that expired in 1967, I think it was, talks a little bit about the history of it, and then actually shoots and gets it developed. And it's very interesting. The results are fascinating to see. So do go and check that out if you have a moment.
What's the oldest expired film you shot yourself, Becky?
I have a roll of Kodachrome that I will never be able to get developed. But I've never shot it.
What's the expiry date on that?
It was, I think it is 1975 or something. I can't remember exactly, but I think it's that. Maybe it's earlier than that.
Wow, mine was like probably 1999 or something.
Really?
Like this. Yeah. So if you got expired film, please send it to us. As long as it doesn't have radiation, we'll take it.
Well, I do have some expired film in my fridge, but I think it expired in sort of 95 or something. It's no great vintage. And to be honest, I think that I must have picked it up off one of my grandparents at some point, and it was definitely not kept in the fridge. I shot a roll of Fuji color, which was expired, and it came out so like green and red and weird. That's
the thing. I don't quite understand the fascination of shooting expired film and expired film selling at ridiculous prices on eBay. But I guess if it's floats your boat, why not? I mean, I do prefer just a fresh film straight from the oven on my fridge, straight into the camera,
I think if it's black and white, it's okay. But the expired color film, that's the tricky one. The emulsions in that are so sensitive to heat.
But you do get like black and white film kind of fogging up, you lose the contrast.
It's true. I think, it's a little bit like using a toy lens or a lens that gives you that quirky characteristic. With film, particularly with expired film, you never know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
There's a brand which I shot a few rolls of, which was called Double Film, which would be like,
it comes in 2 rolls.
No, but it was because it was processed before, and it would have like interesting maybe light leaks or artifacts or whatever.
Oh, I see. So effectively you're doing double exposure. I'm with you.
And that was very interesting.
There's actually a club on the internet. I forgot the name of it, but basically what people do is they shoot the film and then they exchange it.
I love that.
And then you shoot it again on top of it. So you generally, let's say you're in the United States and someone sends you a roll from France and you send them a roll from the United States, and then you shoot it and it comes out with very interesting results.
I think that's quite fun, really. If you're into that sort of thing, it can be quite entertaining.
Absolutely. We should start a film club.
We should. Thank you very much for watching and or listening. If you're listening on a podcast platform, please give us a follow, a review, a rating. What else can they do?
Well, you can find apparently us everywhere on all podcast platforms, and we are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, Amazon Music Podcasts, you name it. So we are there. And if you do find us there and you like the podcast, do let us know.
And if you're watching on YouTube, please give us a like and a subscribe. We do have a competition for all our subscribers. If you are a subscriber to our YouTube channel and also to our e-newsletter, which you can subscribe to under any of our videos, then you will be in with the chance to win one of our lovely new beanie and a limited edition Nikon poster, as well as a Nikon notebook and a 100th anniversary leather strap. So it's worth being subscribed just for that.
And if this is not enough, you can find us on Instagrams of the world.
I'm at Rebecca_Danese.
And I'm at Konstantin Kochkin. Fantastic. And we will see you next week.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.